Colonization fractured the original design of identity, and this is how it's showing up in the online spaces with natives and pretendians. Colonization replaced relationship with rank, it replaced connection with comparison, it replaced kinship with category. And hierarchy is also not natural to indigenous people. Hierarchy is a repercussion of mutation in DNA that formed from genocide. Hierarchy is a consequence of spiritual, emotional, and physical dismemberment. And this is exactly where the Pretendian movement ties in. Because when your DNA has survived generations of erasure, your spirit can start to grasp for certainty. Comparison of blood quantum comes to mind, and branded affiliations and systems that were created to separate us in the first place come to mind. Comparison is actually what disconnects us from what it means to be operating from a place of ancient memory. An embodiment of ancient memory is the definition of indigenous mentality. So the mind can start reaching for belonging in places that feel maybe safe, visible, or powerful. And that's why so many people, indigenous and non-indigenous alike, feel anxiety around belonging. And so now people are clinging to their identities because they're trying to soothe that internal void created by separation from oppression, segregation, and the cycle of demonization and idolization from the internal void created from genocide. And in that space of comparison, people start reaching for identities that were never theirs in this life. And natives start to get wrapped up in other people's identity crisis. When in turn, this Pretendian movement as a whole actually exists for all people involved to gain liberation from slavery to colonization. And so yes, pretending to be indigenous becomes spiritually dangerous. And let me explain. When someone steps into an identity that is not theirs, they're not just misrepresenting themselves, they're trying to access a spiritual power, a cultural frequency, an ancestral resilience in their lineage that it was not built for. This is forced initiation. This act alone creates distortion. And Pretendians actually give their free will away because it's like this. If they had a choice with our Creator before they came onto this planet, don't you think that they would have chosen to be indigenous if their soul could handle the trials and tribulations of carrying the sacred responsibility? Yes. Carrying certain bloodlines have different responsibilities, and it is important to remember as well, Pretendians are siphoning power from cultural root systems they were not initiated in. And when indigenous people give their attention and power to someone else's identity crisis, it becomes a trauma loop based on energy siphoning. A cycle where we end up emotionally and spiritually reacting to someone else's confusion instead of staying grounded in our own medicine. This loop was born from false doctrines forced upon us, doctrines that taught hierarchy, judgment, and constant self-defense through the gaze of oppression. And if you're mixed blood like me, you might have experienced and seen all perspectives in this manner. And at the end of the day, we need to put our emotions to the side for the purpose of decolonization. Looking at everything as in a rational perspective, like money. What's the profit for indigenous people to release anger about Pretendians? Perhaps maybe empowerment, maybe having a voice for once, perhaps lingering heat in the body, perhaps stagnation in someone else's story, perhaps being hyper aware at the cost of self-sacrificing your own time and medicine. Because trauma looping with people who are already violating spiritual law through lack of sovereignty, okay, engaging with these Pretendians in the online space, in any space at all, can be contributing to the indoctrination of broken Roman religious systems that have been programmed into our DNA from genocide. Then you become part of the problem, and here's how, okay? Systems that conditioned indigenous people to measure themselves through external validation are a self-fulfilling prophecy of disempowerment on all levels. These systems taught us to police each other's identity rather than heal our own. These systems trained us into reacting, defending, proving, and performing. And if you're expressing from this form of slavery to the matrix on any level, you still have decolonizing to do. Your ancestors are still needing healing for the bloodline to literally step out of the system completely. That's what we've been waiting for, especially in the way that we think. And so we have a choice. If indoctrination continues to influence our receptivity to the world around us, and especially to the people who are violating our ancestors. So yes, call out the harm, protect the culture, But do not hand your power or your spirit to the demonization cycles our ancestors never asked us to carry, because Indigenous identity was never built on hierarchy. And so the moral of the story is this: stay in your own lane, not out of avoidance, but out of discipline. Your responsibility is your own involvement, your own mind. Your responsibility is your own bloodline. Spiritual warfare is an inside job, not a comment section, not a TikTok debate, not identity policing. If you want to decolonize your lineage, start with the discipline of your own mind. Start with the places where you still believe that you may need to prove yourself in a world that was built on colonization, that was built on illusion. Because the truth is, when you heal your connection to your identity, to be in alignment to the earth and the stars, when you remember who you are beyond the systems, when you rise from the darkness into light, no pretendian can touch you. No false identity could threaten you. No colonized hierarchy can define you. Because this is how you break hierarchy. This is your choice. This is how you break separation mentality. And choice and free will to choose wisely is how you reclaim your freedom. Stay free.